Unfortunately or fortunately, this did not happen to me, but believe it or not, this story is absolutely true. My beloved told me about her, and her mother told her. It happened in a small town, about 15 years ago, but my mother-in-law, according to the description of my wife, remembers her as if it were yesterday. At the same time when there were fewer cars driving on the streets, phones were mostly push buttons, and emos and goths loitered everywhere on the streets. One summer evening, a young company of 5 people went from swimming in the local lake, noisily drinking alcohol and walking through the forest. On the way to the city on a wide path near a tree, one of the party girls accidentally discovered some shabby black book. At first, everyone thought that it was a Bible or something similar, but after quickly scrolling through all the pages there, they doubted this theory, since the rather frightening black and white illustrations in the text written in a beautiful Gothic font spoke of the opposite and only further fueled the interest of the young and hot people. As a result, of course, it was decided to take the book with them for a more detailed study. Having reached the city, a firm decision was made to continue the party, having already gathered at the apartment of one of our guys on the outskirts near the forest. Already at home, after sitting at the table for a short time with a beer, and then with songs and dances, it was decided to have some fun in a rather non-trivial way, namely, to call the spirit. And what kind of spirit we wanted to evoke, we had absolutely no idea. The time was already around 10 p.m., and outside the window it was slowly starting to get dark. Having made an improvised disc with letters from A to Z from improvised materials and arranging all the paraffin candles that we had in the closet in a circle, we therefore already began to pronounce in turn some words from the video that taught the summoning of spirits. But one of us, Natasha, who found that very book on the path out of the forest, decided to suddenly remind us of it by taking the book out of her backpack. I will say right away that I absolutely never believed in any kind of mysticism, but I am ready to swear by anything that the book seemed to have slightly increased in size, and the font that was on the cover now emitted a faint glow similar to phosphorus. Then, putting it in the center of the circle and opening the first page, I also noticed that the condition of the book as a whole had also improved and changed from medium shabby to new, as if it had been from a store. Not long after sitting in the awareness of these changes in seconds of bewitching silence, one of the girls interrupted our sticking to the book with a question. The people are Latin. Who knows Latin? Not loudly but confidently, I said, I don't, but I know that my mother is a pharmacist by education and in medical matters they always use this language, especially in the name of medicinal plants. Natasha replied, aha, well, just think Malik will call his mother here, what a trash it will be. After her words, everyone burst out laughing. Then Danya said slowly and confidently, so, okay, I know Latin. After this pleasant surprise with his knowledge of Latin, everyone abruptly fell silent and began to wait for the first words they read in Danny's voice. And so, the Necronomicon started from Danya's table of contents, to which one of the girls immediately reacted, oh, this is something familiar, in the old horror movie Evil Dead, I kind of heard this. Then, turning to the next page, Danya said in a mysterious voice, Macaro oculus paratitis, veruti vens sp abstract, affiliramos mita magnum opus. After almost a minute of our painstaking silence, I said, well, what's all? As you can see, nothing happened, but I always said that this is boring bullshit for suckers. It would be better if they went to the movies. And then abruptly after my words in the room, something seemed to have changed. I would say it seemed to reboot, but without visible changes, after which a chill ran down my spine from the thought, what if something otherworldly still exists? Because it is fear that is the cause of disbelief. The candles burned brighter. In the eyes of all, only one thing was clearly read, wild curiosity and slight fear. Next, Natasha pressed her finger to her mouth and said, here, and drew our attention to something coming from the open window of our 4th floor from the side of the forest. Not immediately making out the sound, I, like many of us, assumed that it was in the distance. The accelerating train was buzzing weakly. And I also know there is such an effect. But I just don't know how it's called correctly. When from afar or just with the quiet sound of a monotonous signal, sometimes it's not clear whether it's a squeak or a bass. And only when you hear closer or louder you begin to distinguish what it was on actually. Well, I think you understand what I mean. And then I caught myself thinking that electric trains are running, but in a completely different part of the city, from where they cannot be heard at all, and this is even with the cleanest and most transparent summer air. After these very assumptions of mine, they seem to be confirmed by Natasha. No, this is not a train. Another whole 5 minutes of tension of our hearing and we have already begun to clearly hear the growing scream, either a rumble, or a howl. Everyone was thinking and talking about different options. The most ridiculous assumptions flashed through my head every now and then. For example, I personally thought that it was a drunk, frightened, screaming man running, or maybe even a drug addict who caught a psychedelic trip. But stop. This cry was uninterrupted, without a single hesitation from running, and therefore he still couldn't be human. The feeling of primitive animal horror grew exponentially, taking precedence over curiosity. Louder and louder the bass forest howl approached, and there was already a clear understanding that it was coming towards us. To our apartment. The girls sat with their fingers in their ears and were afraid to move. Kolya and Danya and I sat under the window, wondering what it could be. Our beloved cat Nyusha hid under the bed and began to hiss anxiously, and Natasha laid out all the icons that were in the house on the table and began to pray actively. Alcohol, of course, has long left our minds. We all sobered up as if we didn't drink at all. Danya said in a whisper that the matter was definitely in the book and that it should be urgently thrown away or burned. But I tried to get up out of the corner of my eye and look out the window. I'll say that I didn't really manage to see anything there, because twilight was doing its job. But looking down a little further, I spotted some movement in the foliage of trees and shrubs. This movement was rapidly heading towards our house. The howl, like thunder, came from everywhere and nothing but him was heard. No singing of birds, no chirping of cicadas, not even the notorious grasshoppers. Natasha lost her nerve. She could not stand it and decided to run away, taking her friend Bozina, but we all stopped them for obvious reasons. Then we heard a strong roar in the area of the first floor, pulling out the door with hinges into the entrance. Something gigantic broke in, demolishing other doors and locks. "People, urgently check the front door," Danya said in a panic under the clatter of an ominous creature, and Natasha and I ran to the door. Our happiness is that it was closed to all possible turns and locks. Exhaling, we turned off the light in the corridor so as not to attract too much attention and moved a short distance. Now we knew for sure, it was coming towards us. It wanted to get us. There was only one thing left, to pray and hope for an iron door, not expensive and not cheap, but most importantly, an iron one. A little bolder, Bozina also approached, which gave us a common collective courage, and of course this served as an occasion for me to show my courage, after which I nevertheless decided and went to the door peephole. And what I managed to see then plunged me into real horror. In the stairwell in the twilight of the night stood a huge figure about 2.5 meters tall. This creature consisted as if from separate and gloomy puffs of smoke, and in general terms it resembled either a bull, or a wolf, or all of that same horned devil. It greedily looked with its white eyes without pupils directly at me, and I will then succumb to an uncontrolled hypnotic effect on it. We stood like that for another 10 seconds, playing those damn peepers that seemed like an eternity to me. Then a sharp blow, after which whitewash fell from the ceiling, and at the same time I was thrown a meter away from the door. Unable to resist, I collapsed to the floor, hitting my head hard on the shoe rack. In a panic, the guys quickly realized, took me by the arms and dragged me away from the door. Then another blow followed, which was stronger than the previous one, and after it another and another. Here it seemed the door would not withstand and fly off the hinges. Neighbors? Lord, where are the neighbors? I thought. Are they all sleeping? Or are they all not at home? Or are they just like us, sitting and being afraid of an unknown giant creature? I quickly began to remember prayers, baptize myself, and open the door. Another blow, and then everything that was possible fell into the hallway, from clothes to a closet. Natasha, taking that damn book found in the forest, hurriedly threw it out the window. I continued to pray with my head down. It's good that my father took me to church from childhood and I knew many prayers by heart. Finally, the blows gradually began to subside, and soon everything calmed down altogether. Apparently, our tearful prayers with Natasha actually helped. We did not dare to move, to go to the toilet, and even more so to go to the people for at least another half an hour. We even tried to breathe more quietly than was possible for the human body. And already at 4 it finally began to dawn and the morning confidently began to come into its own. Closer to 5 in the morning we were all knocked out into a deep disturbing sleep, and we woke up already at 12 in the afternoon from a knock on the door of Danilina's mother, who had returned from the night shift. "What are you doing here?" heard from the entrance. "What's wrong with the door?" "I don't even have a key going through normally," Danny's mother said nervously, but kindly. Daniel somehow miraculously opened the front door from the inside, and remembering everything that happened last night like a bad dream, of course he didn't rush to tell his mother about how everything really happened, but only said that local hooligans were breaking in at night, apparently thinking of committing a robbery or attack, in which we all unanimously supported him, realizing that they simply would not believe us. We silently began to go home. The condition still remained as after a shell shock. Someone called a taxi, and someone decided to go on foot. Leaving the entrance, I was shocked by what I saw. The thick iron entrance door was dented and lay nearby as if they were trying to return it from under the scrap metal press and attach it to its former place. I also drew my attention to the fact that in small groups here and there and something vigorously discussing, the puzzled residents of the house were standing, and the grannies now and then, who were always sitting on a bench near the entrance, even pointed at us with their fingers. Arriving home, my gloomy thoughts about what had happened did not give me rest, and having made myself a stronger coffee, I decided to dig through the internet and see what the hell it could be. After painstakingly sitting at the computer for more than 3 broken hours, I really did not find clear answers to my requests. But at the very last moment, when I had already taken a dinner of despair and humility before my eyes, a website opened up on which that same ill-fated book was described in the most detailed way and even in Russian. It turned out that the ancient Latin incantations on the first page had to be pronounced in conjunction, adding the name of a particular spirit presented on the following pages. That is, it turns out that we called for something hellish and otherworldly just at random. Scrolling through the description of the varieties of sinister entities of that book, I realized that one of the most powerful and dangerous spirits, the ancient forest spirit, Ali Prius, fits these descriptions most of all, which feeds on the fear of all living things and absorbs the souls of people with direct eye contact. After all this, as expected of course, my skepticism about the existence of otherworldly forces came to an end. Moreover, of course, my friends and I never again experimented with holding such seances, and in the forest we tried not to walk until late. But this hell, I dream about it in nightmares, and that ancient creature that emits it as it approaches, to whom we accidentally opened the gates to our world with the help of an ancient book of spells, may have remained in our world. And who knows, maybe at night it roams in the woods near your home. So if you hear howl, run immediately.